The Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, August 30th, 2021. The time is 5:15 p.m. And to remind the public, we are still having virtual availability through Zoom. So if you would like to join us, Joanne, would you do the roll call, please? Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, it's time for public requests. We'll take the public who is here, and then we'll take any hands that are raised on Zoom right afterward. So if you'd like to step up to the podium, and we'd love to hear your comments.
Need to push the button to turn your mic on so we can hear you.
Yeah. Good afternoon. The last time I was lucky enough to be here was a couple of years ago. I represent the Boca Raton Junior Buccaneers Rugby Club.
Could we get your name and address, please?
Certainly. I did put it in the sign-in sheet, but nevertheless. So Garth Duff Gray, 5601 Nassau Drive, Boca Raton, Florida, 33487. In any event, so I represent the Boca Bucks, the Junior Bucks, a youth rugby program. We've been around since 2012. I was one of the founding members of that, inspired somewhat by some colleagues of yours, Dr. Dennis Fritsch. Some of you were kind enough, or perhaps unkind enough, to remind me of that relationship. But nevertheless, we are looking for some help with rugby fields. Currently, we are located on the Don Estridge soccer pitch. We have anywhere from 75 to 125 kids in our youth program. And, you know, it vacillates as kids come in and drop out throughout the season. Our seasons run from about September through May. And again, it's a program that we've seen a lot of growth in. The problem is that you have to try and stage anywhere from 75 to 100 kids on a single soccer pitch. And as you can imagine, that's density beyond anything else that any other leagues are subjected to. We are grateful, obviously, for the field down at Don Estridge, but we would like you to please keep us in mind. Again, a couple of years ago, I did visit with you and made a couple of pitches. We were hopeful that we would see some demarcation lines put into patch reef. Not sure if that ever happened. Irrespective, the Don Estridge is a wonderful field. Rugby is not very popular to be played. It's not played on artificial turf because we don't wear full uniforms like you would see a football player, you know, wrapped in long sleeves, long leggings, etc. We play in shorty shorts and a rugby jersey, and that's pretty much it, with cleats. So anytime you're going to ground on an artificial turf, you're getting grass burns, and often because of the fact that those fields, through no fault of anyone's, they tend to collect a lot of dirt. So a lot of the times we get staph infections and various other infections from the contusions that we inevitably get in a game. Just to briefly put it all together, and I represent to a degree the adult club as well. We would really appreciate if you would, as we are moving into the budget season for most places, I assume the same with the county and the city and all the other administration offices, is to please keep us in mind. The single field that both the men's club and the youth program shares, together with soccer on off days and Don Estridge School every day, takes a beating. So by the time April rolls around, it's pretty much a dust bowl at that point. Again, this is not a complaint. We are extremely grateful for the opportunity to be able to use those facilities. And we work very well with the city, trying to mitigate any kind of damage done to the field. But again, please, as you go into your budget process, please contemplate rugby. It is one of the greatest games around, as I'm sure Jack was kind enough to remind me. Not that I needed it. Thank you though, Jack. But there's a lot of growth happening. We have a collegial relationship with the junior youth football programs because it's a natural feeder program. So we're recycling a lot of kids through both programs. And we hope that you guys will be, sorry, you folks, colleagues, will be, just keep us in mind, please, as you get into this budget process. Boca Chica, I believe I've been around in Boca since '93, came in from Los Angeles, prior to that South Africa. But I've seen those 2 golf courses out there. There seems to be an awful amount of room. However, we'd always gratefully accept the place over on the beach. That of course would be the finest rugby pitch in all the world, frankly. But be more than happy to get any patch of dirt that you could put in our direction. Any questions?
What days do you practice, and what days are your games, and
Sure.
and the hours that are needed?
Okay, so the youth program practices twice a week from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then the men come in the same 2 days of the week from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. We play games on Saturdays, and the age groups that we're involved with, so it's multiple games that we have to stage on a single field. We have U10s, under 10s, under 8s, under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, and under 20s, under 19s. Okay. So there's a lot of activity, a lot of teams that come through because we are a travel rugby club. So to that end, it gets really busy. I hope I answered your question though. Okay.
Have you gone to the city and discussed this with Michael Calvert from Recreation Services to kind of find out if there's any fields that are available?
No, but I have been in touch with Kevin, who runs the athletic department,
Okay,
frequently because it's a perennial topic, as you can well understand.
mhm,
The only suggestion was that he knows that there's a lot of pressure happening with the Estridge School and the school district. So to that end, we are concerned that the longevity of rugby on Don Estridge may be very short-lived. So not sure I answered your question,
no, yeah, I
but if
think,
that's my path, I thought I'd rather start here, but be happy to go with whatever advice you have.
well, I think it would be good to kind of put this on their radar too, because
Okay.
they have phase 2 of
Thank you.
the Orleans Park, being designed next year, right? I mean, it's in the budget to possibly be designed for next year, or the maintenance complex at least. So they're thinking about it.
I heard the design had been put on hold, Aaron. Because it was one of the,
Either way,
Yeah.
it's good to also get this on council's
Okay.
radar as
Thank
well,
you
I
for that.
think, but also to keep going to rec services and see if they have any availability, even at the field over by off of Fifth Avenue.
Lake Wyman.
Yeah, Lake Wyman. I know I went to a rugby game there once, actually.
Years ago. Yeah,
Years
we were
ago.
out there.
Yeah, and that's a grass field at least, and it's
Right.
not turf. So, I don't know, maybe they have some ideas for you that can also be
Thank you.
utilized for that program too, but we'll definitely, I think.
Thank you. So
Garth, when you leave the podium, would you come over and just give me your phone number? So I'd like to give you
Absolutely.
a call.
thank you.
Okay.
Will do, Mr. Rance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Garth.
Thanks. Can I just do a handout as well, since I have you as a captive audience?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Oh, thank you. Nice to see so many familiar face masks. Nice to see. My name's Sil Silberti. I'm from 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Boca Raton, Florida. And Miller Legs, Mike Kroll and Dylan Larson on the 16th meeting. They compared Ocean Breeze to the Plantation Project. And I know the council members here has received many unique RFI proposals, mine being one of them, but there were many. And I know that Miller Leg is talking, and I believe very sincerely that they're going to get public outreach and the residents involved. And I want to encourage the commissioners to phase in some unique components as part of the phases. Plantation is good, but it's good, better, Boca, not good, better, mediocre. Please have the encouragement and wherewithal. Please make it special.
Thank you. Long time no see, Mr. Duquette. Welcome.
Thank you, Robert Duquette, 5351 Northwest Third Terrace. As we've all learned in the last 18 months, one of the most important things is our health, the health of our family and friends. And so it's very good to see all of you here and staying healthy. With that regard, of course, recreation is one of the things that we all like to do to stay healthy. So let's hope that we can continue to enjoy our recreational facilities provided by the Beach and Park District. It's also very good to see that a majority of the district here has basically agreed to cooperate with the city and stop trying to fight City Hall regarding the plans for the development of Boca Chica property. With the cooperative effort, I would hope that the city council could approve an upcoming design for a great recreation facility at your Boca Chica property, and maybe even offer some of the $67 million they're getting from the sale of the Western Golf Course for improving the Boca Chica property. I think that's hopefully not too ambitious, but I think that's realistic if you work on a cooperative effort. With regard to your Boca Chica planning, I'd like to make a couple of recommendations based upon my years of advocating for saving this green space, which again, I want to thank you for doing that. I think that a lot of residents within our community in Boca Chica were bent on obviously having a golf course. Of course, everything changed when the city got a nearby golf course, and it really made it somewhat redundant, even though it's not the exact same thing that they had currently out at the West Golf Course. But it's time to look at the recreational needs of our residents of all ages and consider what to build on this property. As you just heard from our people in the rugby area, there is definitely need for fields that could be used. Currently, the district is spending $340,000 a year for your soccer fields at FAU. That's over $6,500 a week. It certainly is not near that cost to maintain those fields. It's also noteworthy that FAU recently updated their master plan. It's on the website at FAU. And there's no mention here of continuing to lease fields to the district. So I think that there should not be a plan B, but there should be a plan A. And that plan A should be to help serve the growing youth of the city. I mean, the district is well over 100,000 population. And with the number of cranes I see, especially along your Model Road and Congress, that avenue, it's continuing to grow. And obviously it's important to have the fields necessary to meet that. Again, soccer is important. It's probably more important, I think, even than Little League from the days that many of us were growing up. The other thing that I wanted to recommend are the pickleball courts. Pickleball courts have been mentioned here in the past on the tennis courts that are already there. And those tennis courts, as has been mentioned, I believe there are 6 tennis courts there. Maybe not all of them are 100% ready to be converted, but I think that it would cost a lot less than $900,000 to have 12 tennis courts there than what you're proposing right now at Patch Reef. This is certainly a need. You've identified a need within the community. We have the ability to make that happen at a much lower cost. And I think that now's the time to get that going. Lastly, could you help explain how your public private partnerships would work when you have indicated in the past that there's no conveying, leasing, or selling of the property per the state regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decay. Absolutely.
A quick question for you. You said the FAU master plan doesn't include, you're saying it dropped out the soccer fields or?
No, they have a lot of text in here also talking about their objectives.
Uh-huh.
And their objectives are obviously to continue to build residential and athletic facilities for the students of the campus.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, so yeah, they just didn't mention the partnership that they have.
right. Obviously, you have a lease agreement on that property. And I know Mr. Rollins, when he was advocating for that at the time, he pointed out, as we all know, that it's a growing campus and a lot of new buildings have been growing up in the last few years. And I suspect we're going to continue to see that type of growth continuing. So it's you're at risk of losing those fields. And even if you don't lose those fields with the growth with the population, I mean, it's important to have fields like we're here from the rugby people. So
Then, Madam Chair, it's more, I don't know when's appropriate, but I would like to address the pickleball courts or the courts that are at Boca Chica at some point. I think we're in the budgeting process. If you want to do it then, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to mention, Robert, there was a publication I just recently got from the university, and they're talking about the things that they've been doing and have accomplished. And one of the bullet points in there was the 10-year lease that they had recently negotiated with the Beach and Parks District. Now, leases can always, there always usually is an out clause there in the leases. And it's anticipated that we'll probably be able to fulfill the terms of those leases. But as you mentioned, in the future, phase 2 that Aaron mentioned is going to be even more important to the community to have that done. So we're on the case, I assure you.
okay.
Thanks.
Again, just because a lot of people have the perception that Boca Chica is over 55, that's certainly not the case, as we've had a lot more younger demographics in that area, as well as, of course, in Hidden Valley. And it'd be nice for the people to be able to walk to these facilities. And I'm sure you're gonna have walking paths around some of it, and that will help as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decay. Mr. McWalter, thank you.
Jack McWalter, 1100 Northeast Second Terrace. Too bad that rugby guy disappeared, because I drive by El Rio Park, which is a huge soccer field, about twice a day, even in the evening. It's rarely used. I should have told me. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is the last time Angela talked about demographics. So I decided to do some homework. I contacted the Board of Education and got a document that I can route to you if you like, but it shows that there's 6 schools in Boca Raton that are over capacity, serious over capacity. We're not talking hundreds, we're talking maybe 1,000, all 4 high schools. And anyway, the demographics are changing dramatically here in Boca Raton. Some people estimate as much as 30%. That's a lot. I know my neighborhood is just incredible with all the new kids coming in, et cetera, et cetera. I also did some homework. I contacted friends over at Osprey. They have a youth program. They expect it to be overwhelmed this September, October. Nowhere near able to handle the capacity. Same with Boca Muni, Deerfield Country Club, etc. So you get the message that we got to take this seriously in the demographics. We haven't seen anything like this since 1980, when IBM came down here with 10,000 people. I know I was one of them, and I brought my kids, and we were looking for parks. I think I already talked about my confrontation with Imelda and Sue. I think, something simple. 9-hole executive course is 40 acres and a trailer next to it to handle the transactions. I couldn't think of anything more simple than to be included in the future of Boca Chica. That's about it. Thank you for your service, and keep doing it. And also, as far as the tax increase is concerned, I can handle $114 a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before we go to the hands raised on Zoom? Melissa, do we have anyone? Okay,
Ms. Neaporte, if you'll give your full name, your address, you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is actually Joe Neaporte. I'm using my wife's computer. I live at 404 Southwest 7th Terrace in Boca Raton. I've been a resident of Boca Raton since 1961. I'm a lifetime member of the PGA of America, and I'm really excited about the Boca Country Club becoming the new Boca Municipal Golf Course. I look forward to meeting Jason Hayes and Bob and Pagley, who's been doing a great job for the city for years. With that being said, I've also had the opportunity to see a proposal for a state-of-the-art indoor tennis facility that would be a real gem for the city of Boca Raton, along with pickleball courts and some basketball courts. But one of the things that's going to be missing for the city of Boca Raton is out at Boca Municipal, they did have that executive course, and I think that it would be great if out at Boca Tica that they were able to build an executive course for seniors and for juniors. There's a huge need with COVID, junior golf is booming. All the golf programs I'm involved in, golf is huge, and the driving range out there would be a great place to host golf clinics. We could do a nice short game area. And a quick story, in 1962, my father, Tom Neaporte, and Chichi Rodriguez, they cut the ribbon at Boca Tica, and they were the two golf professionals that played the course for the first time in front of about 200 people. There weren't many people in Boca those days, but I feel that it could be a win-win situation for the city. And like the gentleman, Mr. Decay said, it would, bring open green spaces. There's nothing like a golf course for open green spaces. And I look forward to meeting some of you to talk further how we could pull this off. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Neaporte. You have a great history.
Mr. Starkoff, you may speak. Please give your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Earl Starkoff, 3260 St. Charles Way, Boca Raton, 33434. Hello, everybody. Glad to see everybody's well and back in the facility. I want to first thank also Joanne for sending out the agendas in advance. I love reading budgets. When I sat at your table, it was always one of my favorite times of the year. And I originally dialed in just to speak on one item on the budget. But I just want to share with you before I get to that, that of course you know me as one of your former colleagues or displaced colleagues, whichever you could choose. And also that I am now the past president of SABRE, but I retain in my director portfolio dealing with our needs for fields. And I certainly will tip a hat to Kevin Beckman at the city and his entire staff, maintenance, athletics, everybody. They've just been tremendous for the community, not just for SABRE, particularly the last year dealing with COVID. But with the renewed optimism that COVID does not present a danger in outdoor activities, we're looking at numbers that go beyond and above what we saw in the year before COVID. We could be approaching numbers for registration approaching 5-6 years ago, when we were alerted to the needs for fields, when the city started getting on their radar the need for DeHornley Phase 2. And I understand that, yes, plans like in a lot of government units can be delayed. They've budgeted $975,000 for capital improvement for the design of Phase 2 this current fiscal year. And then the next fiscal year will be 9,250,000 for the construction. And yes, that did fall behind schedule. That happens. In a way, it's a good thing. Because we need those fields at phase 2. I do want to say that when I was on the district, we looked carefully at Boca Chica as well as the executive property next door that is still vacant. And it was really a unanimous decision, including from the community, that that northern area is not ripe for the type of traffic that youth soccer would present. Days and nights, we have 3,000 youth players and 500 adult players alone. And the traffic needs, the lights, the usage beyond 10 o'clock at night could all be problematic for the neighborhood, which is why we encourage the development of phase 2. What I came to speak about is the maintenance facility for SRAC. I know that it's a shared cost with the city, and I want to encourage you to improve it. Approve it because by getting it started now, it will tie in better to the opening of phase 2. The city needs the facility. They're currently using part of the parking facilities as well as other land at the south end of phase 1 for maintenance equipment. When the city actually breaks ground on phase 2, which could be 2 years from now, all of that parking, all of that storage is going to go away because it'll be used for the development process. That will impact the current users that need the parking at phase 1. So just in terms of logistics, please approve the maintenance facility, shared facility. It's a great time to develop the plans for the maintenance facility and the access to phase 2 while phase 2 is being designed. And it'll certainly make for a smoother transition for the public when construction starts, let alone opening of phase 2. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Earl. Good to hear from you.
Nice to speak.
Would anyone else in the physical presence like to speak? Okay, public requests are now closed. It's time to approve the minutes of the August 16th, 2021 board meeting. Do I hear a motion? Thank you, Steve. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion, any questions, any corrections? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please? Joanne, our first item of regular business is the Boca Chica maintenance RFP, and Brianne is going to give us a little narrative.
Commissioners, on page 8 in your agenda packets, there's a very brief memo about the Boca Chica RFP for maintenance. We had that open from June 14th to July 16th. We received just one bid, one response to that RFP. What I'd like to do is ask tonight the board to make a motion to reject that bid, and then a second motion to re-advertise with some clarity on the bid specs, because what we'd like to do is to make sure it was in the specs, but we want to make sure that we get this out and let prospective bidders know that they can bid on multiple or all. They can just bid on tree trimming if they want to. They could bid on the landscaping. They could bid on all of it. I want to make sure it's very clear in our bid specs on the second go round. So tonight I'm looking for two things: looking to reject the bid that we got, and motion to re-advertise.
Mr. Rollins, you had your hand
Yes,
up.
I'll make the motion to reject the bid.
Is there any discussion, commissioners? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote to reject the Boca Chica maintenance RFP that exists?
Yes.
Now to reopen the RFP with the specifications that Brianne indicated, Do I hear a motion? Mr. Engel?
Reopen bidding on Ocean Breeze maintenance with the proviso that bidders can be permitted to bid on components of the different maintenance aspects of the property.
Do I hear
Any or
a
all.
second? Thank you, Mr. Ernst. Is there any discussion? Joanne, would you do the roll call vote, please? Move to item number 2, which is user fees found on page 9 of your agenda packet. Brianne?
Commissioners, on page 9, there's a memo from Michael Calvert, Recreation Services Director, detailing some of the changes made to the fees. I met with city staff. I feel like it was pre-COVID because we were in the same room together when we met to talk about getting our fees raised somewhat. We hadn't raised district fees in quite a while, and some of it wasn't meeting the cost. So these are the fees that are being proposed currently, as you could see in this fee schedule. So just wanted to open it up tonight for discussion, and if there was anything that we wanted to look at altering or changing, or just approving these as they are.
Mr. Rollins, your hand's up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had 2 areas that I wanted to discuss, and I'll mention both of those if you'd like. One is the open play at the Sugar Sand Park Field House. I don't quite understand how that operates and the fee structure associated with that.
Okay.
It seems to me, and just looking at the fees at other parks, like Patch Reef, there's some inconsistency in that. And so I'd just perhaps like to have an explanation of
Okay.
what the open play is, and I can make my comments from there after I understand the concept better.
Okay, let me go through that because I did learn about this today. I think in numerous correspondence, I had it right, had it wrong, had it right again. So for the open play at the field house, for the pickleball, for example, you get 4 hours to play. It's basically kind of a drop-in style play like what you would do at El Rio. You can't reserve a certain court or anything like that, like you can at Patch Reef, but it's open play. You go in, you rotate in and out of games. You don't get to necessarily select your friends to play with at that time, but it's a very social atmosphere. And it's a 4-hour block of time that you would pay those fees for. I think it was $2 and $5 were the proposed fees.
I don't imagine that pickleball is played for 4 hours. Is that right, Melissa? But it seemed to me, are there other activities that are scheduled there as well?
Yeah, so open play is just during the week. It's about 5 nights, 5 different times during the week. They have other open play like volleyball, basketball, different sports like that inside the gym. Pickleball varies. I looked at the schedule. Sometimes it's the afternoons, sometimes it's the morning times.
And I just looking at the fees that are paid over at Patch Reef for tennis, there's inconsistency as far as the cost. Usually you get a 90-minute play for, I think it was for a resident, it was $7. I don't recall. And then for a 4-hour play, you have a $5. I don't know whether there's anything I want to recommend at this point, but it just seems like depending upon the play, if someone was actually playing 4 hours, I think we'd need to adjust that fee.
Do you want me to talk with city staff about structuring it for like a 2-hour block of time? And there would be a different fee if you wanted to stay for
Could
the
you
full
do that
4.
and bring that back? And
Yes.
I mean, it may not be practical, it may not be feasible, but then again, if it is, it would work that way.
Okay.
Without, and I'm not picking on the pickleball people, but I
Nobody
would
thinks
like
that.
for us to be fair with our fees. The other that I feel like needs some look at is the racket center. And the reason I point this out is if you were to compare the racket center fees to what's at the Boca Raton Tennis Center, I can just give you one quick example. For a resident, annual resident fee at I call it the municipal tennis courts, but the Boca Raton Tennis Center, it's $247. At our facility, the racket center, it's $420. For a non-resident at our facility, the fee is $1,185. At the city, it's $543. And I know we try to be consistent with our fees with what's being charged at other city facilities. And I'd just like to make a comment about our fees and how they became what they are. So when I was on the district, when we took over the facility, and the fee structure for non-residents was pretty much kept in place. We reduced the fees that were, and I don't remember what the total fees were because they didn't have a resident, non-resident rate. It was just one fee. But we reduced the fee for the resident, and for the non-resident, we kept them the same. I think over time we've reduced them at one point. But if you use the variable that the city's using and the differential between the resident and non-resident rate, it's about 2.2% difference in the rate. So, the adjustment to this rate, if we were to make it consistent, and I'm not sure that the 420 is, I'm not going to address that, but just working off of the 420, if we use the same spread between resident, non-resident that city uses, that would drop the non-resident fee to $924. And using the same spread for the family, the family rate for a non-resident is $710 at the city. It's $1,690 at our facility. For a junior, it's $120 for a resident. A non-resident's $123, and for the non-resident, the new fee is $335 compared to the $123 the city has. So adjusting those rates by the same variation would give you $924 as a non-resident rate for an adult annual rate. For a family, to drop it from $1,690 if it did my rate to $1,132, and for a junior to $264. And that's what I'd propose that we do. It's not a huge, it's not going to affect our budget significantly. And I have, I think I had the number here, but the revenue generated from non-resident membership this past year was $64,265. And there are a total of, adults, there are a total of 38 non-resident adults. So if you drop that, you're not going to have much of an impact on your budget. And I think that's the fair and reasonable thing to do. And I would propose making those changes, Madam Chair, in the form of a motion.
Mr. Rollins, do I hear a second?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, Mr. Ernst.
I always learned that I need to see numbers in the chart. So I understand what you're saying somewhat, but I couldn't really follow it.
Okay.
So if we could maybe get the numbers, the before and after in a chart with the actual volume.
What that difference would be? I can bring that back.
See it visually in Excel, and then we can understand it.
Okay.
And then the other thing I guess I wanted to say was, there must be some thought process how we got there, and so I'm all for making it as accessible as possible to particularly juniors, and making our fee schedule as not excessive. Not something that's what we're here for. So I'm all for keeping them reasonable fees, but I just want to see it all put together.
Mr. Engel?
There are two things that I see here. First, how did this wide variance between fees for like services at city properties and like services at Beach and Park District properties come to be? Services should be just about the cost to residents, non-residents, what have you, should be just about the same at both. But having said that, I think if we drop the fees, in light of the fact that we're contemplating a 19% increase in our tax rate, sends the wrong message, regardless of the impact on user fees on our budget. The optics are horrible. And based on past history, I know that there are people that would just love to see that and love to criticize us for it. So I'd like to see the first part of my comments answered. In other words, how did we get to this point? And second, I can't see reducing our non-resident fees, even though it's a minimal impact on our budget. I can't see reducing those and raising taxes. It just absolutely sends the wrong message.
Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, just looking at this chart that we have, it looks like, I mean, it's been the same price over the annual pass over a 5-year period.
I got here somewhere clear.
4-year period.
Mhm.
And membership went up.
Page are you on your agenda packet?
It's in your folder.
It went up in the juniors. There's only 5 that pay for annual membership. And everything's pretty much stayed the same. Average projection is 44, which is up 6 from last year. So, I mean, and these are non-residents not paying our taxes. So I don't see why we would lower the rate for non-residents and then increase the rate for residents. That doesn't make much sense to me. I would propose just keeping the rates the same because obviously people are fine with paying what we're charging them because they're not going anywhere. And depending on where they live, they probably have an option for a rate to play somewhere else. And so we must have really nice courts. And so I looking at what it's about, what a drop of like $200 could be up to like $10,000 from our budget. So I would propose just keeping them the same.
Madam Chairman, what I'd like to do is withdraw my motion with the criteria that you come back with a spreadsheet showing those rate comparisons,
Okay.
Brianne. And I'll tell you why you may not find any history about these rates, Steve, because when we purchased this property, I'm not sure how long we've had this. Has probably been close to 20 years. The reason we dropped the resident rate because it was their taxes that were purchasing this property. And there were a lot of those residents that were playing tennis on a regular basis with the non-residents who could not afford this. And we resisted the effort to reduce the fees with the idea that we'd come back and revisit this at some time. And that's the revisit that I want to look. Any reduction in the rates would, and I'm guessing, would more than be offset by the fact that we'd have more participation at the non-resident rate. And so I don't see the incongruity between making raising up the millage rate and in turn dropping a rate that's going to bring in additional revenue. You know, it's a guess, but I can't tell you how many times I've spoken at different groups, Rotary clubs and so forth, and there's always somebody in there that used to play there and wants to know when we're going to change the rate. So that's the reason why I brought that forward for some discussion. And I appreciate, Brian, if you could bring that back for discussion, and I withdraw my motion.
Are all the other fees, I know those are the 2 things that were brought up. For the rest of the fees, is everybody comfortable with the other changes to fees? So we'll just come back with those 2 items. Okay.
Righty. The third item on our regular business is the donation memorial policy found on page 20 that Brianne has been working on.
Commissioners, thank you for considering this policy as part of my certified district manager course that I took this year. In order to get that certification, I need to work on a policy that would benefit the district, and considering some of the donations that we've taken in recent years and some upcoming possible donations, I thought now would be a good time to put a policy forward about how we would review those donations and apply them moving forward. So this is the policy that I've written up, hoping to get this policy adopted sometime before November 1st, so I can get my certification on time. But I'm here tonight to listen to any input or things that you'd like to see changed in this, so we could come back at the next meeting. Unless you want to adopt it tonight, that's great too. Either way.
Mr. Horowitz, have you reviewed this as well?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, and thank you for the inquiry. Yes, we have. We've taken a look at this on behalf of Brianne, and we have no legal objection. I think it's very nicely drafted policy.
Commissioners?
Motion that we adopt what we can call Brianne's policy as it is written, and make that the policy of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District. The Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District Donation and Memorial Policy.
I hear a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just one question, Madam Chair. We're talking about donations and memorial policy. So if there were some resident that or some commissioner that wanted to change the name of a park, it wouldn't require a donation, but it would fit within this policy, correct?
There would be some naming rights. There are some outlines as far as naming rights, but that's something that the board could consider.
Okay, so it wouldn't have to be a financial donation made to the district in order to
Correct.
amend the name. Example, James A. Rutherford Community Center, that's the name of the center over at Patch Reef. And the name James A. Rutherford Park, which is over by, also by Lake Wyman. There's a boardwalk there
Yes,
named
yeah.
after him. So, okay. All right. I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands up? Without any further discussion, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
Thank you, everybody, for the support on that.
oh, you worked hard on that. Okay, number 4 on the regular business is the healthcare renewal. That's found on page 23 of your agenda packets.
Commissioners, I spoke with FMIT, that's who's currently providing our healthcare coverage. They have limited, to be honest, it's limited plans. We'd like to stick with our current plan. It's an increase of $3,182.45 for the year. During this next fiscal year, I would like to put on an RFP. I think there's a lot of other options out there, and after talking to our resident insurance guru, I think we could probably go out to market and get some other options available to us. But for now, to keep everybody going on healthcare in light of a world where healthcare coverage is so important, I'm looking tonight for the approval to continue with United Healthcare Choice Plus Plan 14.
Thank you, Brianne. Do I hear a motion?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there any discussion, any questions? Joanne, would you do the roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Item number 5 is the Gumbo Limbo Tower and budget update on page 26. Brianne?
Commissioners, the city is looking to secure another $200,000 for the Tower Boardwalk project. We've heard some new specs and things have come out, and they're continuing to work on the project behind the scenes. Not a lot publicly has been talked about it. I spoke with John Holloway, who is with the Friends. He's the executive director of the Friends of Gumbo Limbo. They've committed $600,000 to the project. We've committed $600,000. So we're out another $200,000 here. I spoke with John. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight because he's got some other things happening right now, but we spoke about the opportunity to possibly, if the board approves this $200,000 tonight, he is committed to doing some sort of targeted fundraiser in the future when we actually have shovels in the ground. It's very hard for them to raise money right now when this project has been very slow to move forward. I think it's been frustrating for everybody involved that it's taken this long, but when the shovels go in the ground and a sign can go up saying coming soon, it'll be a lot easier to raise money for. He's committed to doing a targeted fundraiser for that, and then contributing all that, whatever's raised during that targeted period towards this project. And we would have to work out how that would work or the terms of all that. He's been in and out of dealing with some other things outside of work, but I believe that he also wants to see this project done. He is committed to doing that. It's just a struggle right now to continue to raise money for it because it's sat there and they haven't even been able to get the sign approved to show that it's coming soon. So Tonight, I'm just looking for an approval. We budgeted for it, the extra 200,000 in the budget that I put in this later on in the agenda packet. But I'm looking for approval tonight, and then I will work with John on doing a fundraiser once shovels are in the ground so that we can recoup some of that investment.
Do you have a date of when they might start?
I wish I did.
construction?
I wish I did, but I do not.
Ernst, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the additional 200,000. My understanding of the date is to be, done by September of next year.
Done by September, but when it starts, I'm not sure, but
Right.
yes.
So, I mean, we just have to push the city along to get them expedited. And I don't want to hold it up with this because, by the way, this is all estimated on, pricing. I think that lumber was assumed to be, when we were in the premium. So hopefully costs come down as they move forward, but I don't want to hold it up.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Did you get that, Joanne? Okay, good. Is there any other discussion? Any other question?
Do we know when it's gonna go out to bid? Like as soon as this is approved, is it gonna go out to bid?
I don't think they're ready yet for construction documents, but it's moving along.
Okay.
No other questions? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Item number 6 is the city CIP and the O&M budget discussion found on page 29. Brianne.
Commissioners, tonight I wanted to talk about the city CIP projects, tongue twister here. I included a draft budget, just to show some different scenarios of where we're at. And since I put this letter together, I will say that Mr. Calvert has sent me an email on Saturday saying that there's about $250,000 in money that won't be spent this year that we will be getting back. So there's another $250,000 in here. But this budget that I put together includes the closure of James A. Rutherford Community Center. It included all the requests for city capital improvement projects, including the DeHornley Park Maintenance Facility, the design fees, everything that you see on Schedule A, which is on page 32 in your agenda packets. Everything on Schedule A was included in this budget for discussion tonight.
Let's open this up for discussion before we go any further. Commissioner Wright, do you have any questions for Brianne?
Not yet.
I saw in Mr. Calvert's document that beach renourishment will be deferred. Is this going to be the case? Do we know?
Yeah. Yes, so beach renourishment was deferred. So in the previous budget drafts, you had seen that number come out of renourishment and go into revenues, and then it was paid for in the city CIP. On this current budget, you see that that money is returned to the beach renourishment sinking fund. It didn't impact the bottom line because we had that money set aside in a renourishment fund.
Ernst?
Yeah, Brianne, did you happen to find out what's going on out at the beach? Because I was out there this weekend. There's a bar.
I did
tugboat,
not.
There's a whole bunch of stuff, and they're dropping big boulders out there.
I do believe it's the reef renovation, but I'm getting some verification on that.
What is
A
it?
reef renovation project at Red Reef.
Okay, that must have taken a long work to get that far. I'm surprised. So
We'll verify what they're doing.
Do you have some questions?
In the budget that you handed out, Brianne, the parks operation and maintenance shows the 18,120,000. And the budget that you'd handed out another one earlier that had that same number. But what I was asking is, if you look back in our budget for 2021, we had a budgeted amount of 16,830,000. The projected amount for the year end is 15,684,000. And the question is, if I know the pandemic affected some of that, but how did it go up from 16.8 to 18.2? What was the catalyst in running up that price?
I'm not sure if you saw the memo. I forwarded that out, and maybe I put it in everybody's folders here, actually. Mr. Calvert sent another memo kind of detailing some of the changes to the budget. And there was a 3.5%, I think it was 3.5% COLA raise that was given out to staff. That was kind of the personnel impacts. And then we also went through park by park to do a breakdown of where the increases came from. And you'll see some of that came from grounds at Sugar Sand Park, which is some renovations at the playground there that was included. But a lot of this is really personnel costs adding up over chunks of time. Starting on page 34, you can see the breakdown by park.
Yeah, I read Mr. Calvert's memo very quickly since it was a late edition, and understand the magic words that he was using, but I still, don't understand that that's almost a $2 million increase, and the 3% cost of living is not going to run that up. But I'll leave that with you. But the other question that I have is in the attachments that you gave to us. There was significant increases in if you look on page 30, see 34, I guess. That's if you look at every one of the common grounds increases has a significant increase in expense over the previous year. And we had estimated our budget in 2021 was 581. They're estimating 980, but yet our budget for next year is 777,000, but it's still a $195,000 increase over what we had budgeted in 2021. And that pretty much plays out with the other exhibits that you gave to us. Is there any, what is built into those charges? Any idea?
I honestly, I can't tell you if it's staff or if it's equipment and things like that that have come into that. I know for like Sugar Sand Park, it was a significant increase. And some of that is just at the playground and some other things that they have to do out there at that park, the grounds crews.
Well, for instance, Patch Reef, that's the one on page 34, $195,000 variance. I assume that's over the 581 2021 budget. And if nothing else, I mean, we have sports turf down there, so there's not there's
Well, that
less-
the field maintenance did go down there, but the common grounds is the grassy side, all the grassy areas in between.
Okay, well, I guess that's what I want to know is that any of the capital cost included in that, or is that just strictly maintenance dollars we're talking about?
I'm sorry, these projections that we put together to show the increases include the equipment, and we didn't buy any equipment last year.
Okay,
So some of
there-
these common grounds costs that are going up are because of equipment.
Okay, well, it's been broken out very finely, so I mean, it sticks out like a sore thumb
Yeah.
when you see the increases that
Yes.
they're talking about, but yet I think Mr. Calvert's memo said there's a savings of, what did he say in the memo? Can't put my finger on it now.
There's some lines with savings like the admin and that kind of stuff. There was a little bit of savings in
Okay.
some of those things.
We don't have, do we have another meeting before we
Mhm.
finalize the budget?
Mhm.
Okay, don't we have a public hearing?
15.
Okay, so it's, okay, all right, so we have time. I'd like to get a little more explanation on that if I could,
We'll
Brianne.
break it down for the grounds.
Yes, for the common expenses. For the common grounds, yes.
We did this was a breakdown that Merv and I put together, and this was including the capital like equipment stuff. So that's why
Okay.
that's in there.
Okay. And if I might beg your indulgence for one more. Okay. Mr. Starkov called in and asked about the maintenance facility, and I don't disagree that with the need for that, but I question the percentage that were being allocated, and I'm just wondering if this has been valued engineered, and has this been put out to bid? I don't think it has.
No.
And I think that we just have an estimate that's been prepared as what the cost of the structure is going to be. Is that correct?
The maintenance facility at
Right.
Dehoney, yes. So
Right.
in your folders is a sketch of it, and also the city took Melissa and I through some of the breakdown of the costs, and you can see them broken down by element from the general requirements, the site work, the concrete, the metals. You can see a big chunk of this is just in site work alone, the 1.4 million just for kind of the infrastructure.
Yeah, well, My comments, I'm not an engineer, but I've talked to some people who have built these things, and the cost is, at the top end of the scale. Now, if it comes in under budget, fantastic, but we haven't had that wonderful experience in many years. And my question, has this been valued engineered? We always value engineer projects of this nature.
They've done it through their engineer. This is what they've done is they've gone through and removed certain items that they can. I know that staff has gone through it and reduced it as much as they possibly can. The appearance of this building will contrast with the other buildings in the area as far as not having the same barrel tile roof or things like that other facilities even across the road will have. So they've made some concessions to the aesthetics of it. They've tried to cut wherever they can. I know that they phase some things out of this and they'll do them later on in phase 2 of this project, but when we met with city staff, they have gone through this and tried to whittle it down.
Do you have any ideas how they came up with the percentage of this facility that we should be asked to pay?
I sure do. So they base this upon, there's going to be 57 employees that will utilize this building. And of those 57 employees, 17 of those are district funded positions. And so that comes up to about 30% of the employees using this facility. So they took these numbers that were done by the engineer architect firm, and they figured up our 30% of that based upon the employees, the number of district funded staff that would use this building. Yeah.
So these 17 have offices in there?
That is not the case. And I've asked for some clarity as far as what they're doing. My understanding is that these are people that are working in the field and on the ground. So they would definitely have a different impact on this facility than say somebody who's going in there every day and using the office space.
I would tend to agree with that. I mean, it's a big ask of us, and I'd like to have an idea that number was determined. And I agree with you, is that unless they're occupying office space, I'm not sure why we're having to share proportionally with their employees in this facility. And it's not an inexpensive facility. Frankly, if you can develop that information for me, then
I will go back and we'll talk about the staff and just make sure. I know there was some concern that some of those positions maybe because we do sharing of certain positions. So I'll get a definitive answer on the staffing.
If you could get the square footage price, price
It's
per square foot.
24,000 square feet.
No, the price per square foot. So,
Okay.
and then,
Under
and
air
then the office space looks like it's a major portion of the building. So
It is.
that would, the percentage that it relates to us specifically, since we don't have people in those offices. So if you could, and Mr. Ernst, you had your hand up.
I'm finished, Madam Chair.
Well, I support the, I don't know if we're getting the right number, how we can, that's a different answer, but I think that the facility that we've talked about it long enough. The other part was Todd's comment about park. It's still evolving, so what I think would be most helpful, Brianne, is to have the capital costs separate from the operating costs. The first question is, answer is, are the operating costs increasing or decreasing?
Okay.
You can't tell.
When I say capital, I just mean the city calls these capital, they call it capital equipment. It's equipment used for that specific park. The capital items like these big projects are not included in these numbers.
But in one of the earlier schedules,
Mhm.
it was labeled as operating capital.
We can break that out for you.
I'm just saying, break it out. That
Okay.
way we can really see the operating costs. And from my perspective, although there's a nice memo from Michael, and I do appreciate the work that has been done, I still, for me, I'd like to see it park by park, with more thought put into collaboratively between the district and the staff in the park. You get one person accountable at each park and say what is going on in the park. Really have a plan.
I will say that Michael and I have been talking a lot, and I've been talking with his staff, and I think that there are changes that we want to make. We want to talk about all these hours of operation and some of these things that are different, like Red Reef is open 2 hours later than the other beaches. Why is that? All these different things that have to be looked at. And it will take, I think, yeah, it's going to take time. And I think Michael and I are both committed over the next year to really going park by park together and then talking about what can we do here? How can we change this? Make it more efficient, make it more, all the things that you're looking for.
So this whole process is going to evolve. It's not going to happen before we have to approve our budget. So.
But we can,
So far, what I hear of all this is our budget is, we have the right millage rate set. And I don't see it really reducing that until we do something significant.
well, I will come back with a breakdown of the staff that'll utilize this maintenance facility more as far as what they do and who's going to be in the office spaces, if we have any sharing of those funds for those employees. And then we'll go through this and break out what's capital equipment and what's personnel costs for each park.
Mr. Rollins?
I agree with Craig. We do need this maintenance facility. I just don't, I want to be comfortable that we're not building, to use an old cliche, a Taj Mahal in this facility. And that the office space that is being set up, our employees should not be in the office space. There should be probably a conference room where they come in to get their orders, they write up things, they come in and then they pick up their vehicle and they leave. And that's the reason why I was questioning the size and scope of the project. So with that information, perhaps we can, whittle this down a little bit, our participation.
Okay.
Okay.
Will do.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we should get that percentage correct. And also, we should say, well, if this is our percentage, this is our percentage. If the cost of the project goes up, or we just cap it and say, this is our percentage based on your estimate, not your estimate goes up $1 million, our contribution goes up. I think we should cap it and that be it.
Well, it's much easier to budget that way. Yes.
I agree with Commissioner Wright. We need to have a cap. We just can't have an open-ended, whether it's 20% or 30% or whatever the percentage is, because that kind of says to the city, the message is, you guys don't have to worry about how much you spend because we're going to pick up 30%. But if we say to the city, okay, our cap is $2 million, for example, and that's out of 7 million now, that's a lot different than if the costs go up to 8 or 9 million. And maybe it sets up a guardrail of sorts for the city.
Let me just be the devil's advocate here, though. What if because some of the construction costs are going down, if we set a specific number and the costs go down, do you think they would be amenable?
We do the lesser of 30% or $2 million. If we set it up like that, then we're not vulnerable on the downside.
Any other discussion? You have anything you'd like to add to this?
Nothing else for that item, no.
Okay. All righty. We're now to the approval of payroll and invoices found on page 38 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion, Mr. Ernst?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices of the amount $2,089,174.73.
Who'd get it? Who got it?
I think Mr. Engel got there first. Do we have any discussion about this? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please? Oh, Mr. Rollins.
We're getting closer to the number. This is through March.
We have at this point, that's it.
That's all we have. So hope the system will be able to get these numbers quicker next year, so we can pay our bills.
That will be helpful.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Executive Director Harms, let's do our reports and discussion items. If you would lead us off, please.
Okay. Just to answer Commissioner Ernst's question about the project at Red Reef. This is an environment reef enhancement project under construction. The contractors placed 3 modules and will finish the first round tomorrow and then head back to their loading dock and come back out later this week. And that comes from Director of Municipal Services, Zach Beer. It's an environmental reef enhancement project under construction. So they've placed 3 modules. They'll finish the first round tomorrow and then head back to their loading dock and come back out later this week. So.
I'm with that and all that good stuff. But those are like big boulders, they're rocks, whatever you want to call them.
You're gonna have to snorkel out there.
My question is going to be, it's right on the beachfront there. And I think of the Miami Marlin player who hit a reef. There's been a lot of accidents along the waterway there. And as they drop these things in, we know Red Reef is real close to the shoreline, so it's not an issue. But those are a little further out. And I just hope that if they're putting a barrier, people will see it, or it's deep enough that it's not a factor. And I'm going to go under the assumption it is really deep water.
I have a feeling they've got it.
But I have no idea. So, okay.
Well, that is an update on that project. So thank you, Zach, for letting me know that.
All right.
Just to let the board know, we continue to have to clean up trash and debris at Boca Chica. I know a lot of people don't realize, but I guess when you get a new couch, you drag your other one out to the golf course. And here we are. Well, not here. Melissa has to coordinate somebody to go pick that up. So just as a frame of reference, in the last 18 months, we've spent about $45,000 picking up old furniture, trash, debris, covering graffiti, things at Boca Chica in the neighborhood, just to try to keep it maintained. But I think the city has a bulk trash schedule. We could probably get that out to the residents, and that may be helpful getting that sorted so that we're not having to pick things up off the golf course all the time. CSR is going to go before the Community Appearance Board on September 20th for the fencing at Boca Chica. An earlier date, I know Melissa was working on getting on that schedule earlier. I'm not sure if they had one available. And an update on Ocean Strand, because I know everybody wants to know. Commissioner Wright, the city staff, there was one note that was added after our last meeting that was responded to. It looks like after that's cleared up, we'll have to go before the Parks and Rec Board and then the City Council before permits are approved. So we'll have to get on those schedules, and that's where that's at. And that's all of my updates.
Okay, thank you very much. District Council, Mr. Horowitz.
Evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. On Friday, we provided a legal memorandum that I know the board had requested with regards to the use of the district's property. This was prepared as a follow-up to the opinion of the Attorney General's office that we received last June, which examined our ability or lack thereof to essentially lease or sell or otherwise convey property owned by the district. What the AG had opined was that a special district such as ours, created under Chapter 189, may not sell, lease, or convey district-owned property absent a specific grant of authority in its enabling legislation. And we know that the authority to lease or sell property is not in our charter. We do have the ability to acquire property, but we do not have the ability to lease or sell property. So based on that opinion, our office was asked to look into what options might be available to structure a deal with the third party with regards to the district property. I know the inquiry came in the context of Ocean Breeze, but this analysis would really bear true irrespective of the nature of the property that we were looking at. We spent some time going through a number of different options. We put together a memorandum which lays out several of those options. I'll preface this by offering that in the event that a third-party potential future partner had another option that we hadn't thought about or hadn't contemplated, we're certainly open to reviewing any proposal that a private developer or a third party were to offer to ensure that it did not run afoul or was otherwise compliant with the district charter. The 3 options that we laid out in some detail in our memorandum were a concession agreement, a license agreement, and a facility management or facility use agreement. They're each unique in their own way, although there is some commonality. The commonality among the 3 is none of them result in a conveyance of a real property interest, which we know is the obstacle in the context of our enabling legislation. The first one we offered as an example was a concession agreement, which is essentially an agreement that gives one party, which is known as a concessionaire, the right to operate a specific business on the property of another party, which is often a governmental entity. We see these types of agreements quite a bit in the context of mining operations, railways. There's a lot of history with regards to concessionaire agreements. In fact, in the backup, we offered one example in our office's experience regarding the city of Coral Springs, who about 25 years ago, round numbers, entered into a concessionaire agreement with a third party to develop an ice skating rink at a city park. In that context, the city owned the property, and the city at no point in that discussion conveyed the property to the third party, but pursuant to the concession agreement, they did contract with a party to develop, construct, operate, and maintain that facility on the city's property. Again, we can't predict how any future developer will look at any one of these options, or how any lending institution, to the extent that financing was necessary, would view one of these options. But we thought that would be a viable opportunity to explore further should the need arise. The other option we offered was a license agreement, which we often think of license agreements in the context of software, but a license agreement in the context of real property essentially provides one party with the authority to enter and act on the property of another. It's a licensee and a licensor. Again, the key distinction here is there's no conveyance of real property interest. The challenge with license agreements is that courts often scrutinize them very closely because leases and licenses often can be intertwined between the two. There are a number of different examples we found where governmental entities sought to enter into license agreements that were ultimately challenged, and the court found that they really were lease agreements in disguise. Excuse me. But depending on how any future agreement was structured, a license agreement could also be a viable opportunity. And without knowing what the future use would be, we thought that was one worth mentioning. The facility management and facility use agreements we offered, and we have some experience with these types of arrangements, where a governmental agency owns a park or a sports facility, and you essentially engage a third party to operate or maintain those facilities. They're very straightforward. They're very similar to license agreements, but again, depending on the terms and conditions and how they're structured, it may be more beneficial to use one option as opposed to another. And lending and financing may have some role in that discussion, depending on how some future opportunity might arise. So those are the three that we presented. We did prepare a memorandum. We presented some sample agreements as backup to that memorandum. As we move forward and pursue opportunities with third parties, we're certainly happy to look at other options to the extent that they are available, but we wanted to offer some framework as to some choices, how we might be able to utilize district property moving forward. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions should the board have any. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Any thoughts?
Jake, we could, a fourth option is just to convey it to a piece or all of the property to the city. And then the city would step in our shoes and deal with it. We at any time, we can give property to the city. Is that correct?
Under the statute, if the district were to dissolve for any reason, then the property might otherwise go to the city. But we want to look closely at the charter in the context of our limitation on the ability to convey. It doesn't specify that that limitation applies only to a private party. So we would want to make sure that we had that opportunity under our charter to the extent that it was available, then we would agree that would be an option.
But I mean, that's private party. This analysis is all private party. I'm just saying the city at any time, or the district at any time could say, we want to give the swim and racket center to the city. Is that possible?
I think that's something we would want to look at. Again, we are a separate, independent corporate special district, a separate entity with full portfolio under state law as a private entity separate and apart from the city. If we wanted to convey our property to a third party, including the city, I think that would warrant some specific review under our charter.
Okay. All right.
Engel?
Just a quick question. The specific clause in our charter does, as you said, does not specify an exception to the prohibition against
It does not,
conveyance.
correct.
So I'm not an attorney, but I would read that as unless there's an exception specifically mentioned, there is no exception.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned to the commissioner, we want to look closer at that because again, I read it the same way that the limitation is on the ability to convey. If there was an exception or some opportunity to convey to another public agency, I think that'd be something worth exploring if the board directed us.
Doesn't convey mean?
Convey means
you
convey.
You can't convey.
Convey
means you
means
can't convey.
convey.
Give or
Convey is
otherwise.
Convey means convey.
Ready, you're all set?
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Wright, would you like to start us off, please?
I brought this up at the last meeting. I just wanted to say thank you to the Palm Beach County School Board for being brave enough and strong enough to uphold what was right for our students and our community. Well, 6 of them anyway, 6 of them, 7 of them. So thank you for that. And then I don't know if anybody watched the public input meeting on Boca Country Club. Anybody have a chance to watch it? 2 hours long, informative. I appreciate them doing that. I didn't even know they were having it. I wish they would have let us know so we could have been on live if we were able to. But it was good to watch, to hear Jason Hayes talk about what's going to be done. They were unsure about the pool. A lot of residents, I think, were really upset about that because, in my opinion, I would be upset too if I bought in a country club and then all of a sudden they took the pool away and I didn't have a pool in my backyard. But again, that's based on costs of running a pool and things like that. But it's not totally out of the question, but they are looking into it. So, and they talked about, I guess, adding tees to the 18 holes to make it more playable for older players and younger players, and then increasing the fees over there. They didn't say exactly what the fees would be, or either that or I missed it. So they did say what the fees are going to be, but it was a lot more. I guess I don't know about a lot more, but it was more than municipal. But I guess he said it was comparable to other places. So I didn't hear any comments or anything from any golf association people or anything like that. I hope they were on and they were listening, but I didn't hear any comments. And then, but yeah, I mean, it was a good meeting. They didn't have a lot of answers to some questions, which I get because they're still, analyzing and looking at what they're going to do there. But I hope they don't sell the property to the developers down the road. But I mean, I thought it was a good thing. I think that was about it. I think, yeah.
The fees were $75 for residents and $105 for non-residents, but right before they accepted the donation, before the city accepted the donation, I asked Mayor Singer if district residents would be considered residents, and he said, we'll have to look into that. And there was no mention made of district residents. So Brianne, if you could look into that for us, that would be greatly appreciated to see where we stand as far as being a resident and non-resident, since the people who live in the county are, I don't know if they're going to be considered residents or non-residents.
Well, are they considered residents out of municipal?
No, we're not. District residents are not residents at municipal, but since, the city did ask us to build at Boca Chica, and then, they had this donation, I would think that they, if they could give us some consideration being district residents, it would be, ease a little bit of the pain. Okay, Mr. Engel.
You brought up golf. This is an interesting situation because if the city indeed does not allow district residents to play at city rates, well, where are district residents going to be able to play? I mean, they can play at at the new Boca Muni. But as you said, considering that the city asked us to buy Ocean Breeze to build a golf course, and then the city changed its mind essentially when they got the gift. I think it would be nice. Whether they will or not is another story. But I just thought I'd mention that. I also want to make everybody aware of the fact, I don't know if others are, but when we have our first trim hearing, that is also the eve of the Jewish Day of Atonement, which I observe. So I will have a hard limit on the amount of time that I can spend at the meeting. And that limit will probably be no later than 7 p.m. So I just wanted it to be on the record and aware. Other than that, that's it.
First of all, on Boca Chica, I guess I just want to communicate that we're on a journey and a process with it. And so it may not be going as fast as everyone wants, but I do believe that we're on the right path. And I think we unanimously said we like Miller Leg. We also unanimously said we're open to a golf component. So I think something will evolve, and we're looking for it to evolve, including public input on a number of things. But the one thing that kind of came across that I saw in some of the chatter on the social media was about pickleball and the pickleball courts and the tennis courts. And, you know, we stopped, we started. And the one, lesson I've learned on this board is things take a long time. And I'm not sure it's going to be done anytime soon. So I think for the small amount it is really to convert the existing tennis courts into some pickleball courts and clean it up. We estimated it out before and we stopped because we thought, okay, we're going to do something quicker and faster. But then we stopped on that. I think it's going to take Miller Lake a while. And the total cost of those that we estimated before was about $127,000. And I'd like this board to consider putting that roughly $130,000 towards updating, cleaning up the pickleball courts. So you already have something existing. At least get that going, because regardless of what we do, you're 2 years away from anything big. It's going to take some time. So even if it's a temporary process, I feel very comfortable that the people at Boca Chica will appreciate it and it will be something that they can use. And I'd rather us at least authorize and do that. That's something that we know and we can do well. So it's just using existing courts and doing that. Just put that for consideration. That maybe at the next meeting, we can consider it as a budget item if, we want to do that. Any discussion on that?
I agree with you, Craig. They were being played on before. I mean, it'd be just like Hillsborough Rio where it's open play, put your paddle in the fence and play the next person. It's a social game. I'd like to see, those numbers firmed up. And as you say, it's something we might be able to get going much sooner because this Patch Reef could be a 2-year project.
I think, and now you're bringing up Patch Reef, I'm looking for still an answer on Patch Reef of the city, and this National Pickleball Association before we jump right into it. But if we get those answers, I agree with the concept that racket sports we're trying to keep in one area. Patch Reef makes sense, but it doesn't hurt to have a few more elsewhere. So I'd like to see this in this budget year, and this is a priority to get done this year. It's easy to do. We know tennis and courts people, and we can do that pretty quickly. So that will at least start that, and go from there. The second thing I wanted to mention is, it goes back to a bigger picture type thing that we need to think about. And it's 2 parts, okay? The sooner we realize what we have at Boca Chica is a great opportunity, but we do not have the funding for it. If you really want to do something great with it, it really needs a heavier funding investment, and it's got to happen quicker. And that will happen, I think, as we evolve collectively what the community wants, what the elected officials see what they would like to have happen. But even El Rio Park took $10 million plus to do. Everything they've touched takes 10 million plus to do. And we have 212 acres. So I think that let's let this journey evolve. Let's define what we want and collectively. And when we get there, we have to look for some kind of partnership with the city to do that. And hopefully they'll contribute. Maybe they'll take on a part of the project. I have no idea, no preconceived notions of what's going to contribute. The other option is yes, you could look for public-private partnerships, and maybe someone will step up with some great idea and do it. But I don't know, and I don't know if it will satisfy our friend down there about the conveyance and all that other stuff. So I don't know. I don't know where any of that will evolve, but we'll find out. But I'd like to do the pickleball court sooner and put it in this year's upcoming budget. And then the thing I think we have to think about also is a common theme. And that I had a conversation in the past couple of weeks with the school, two different representatives from the school board. And what became clear to me is there's a lot of needs with the school district. And we've seen it with Birdie Elementary. They have a field there that we should support and help them do. And I don't think it'll take much to help them on that. But what was clear is the school board, due to Parkland and other things, is very guarded of their space. And I think they've always been, the principals have been very guarded of their space, but they're even more so. And I think there is a desire to kind of, push non-school personnel out of the space and limit it. And so we need to be prepared for that. And so in that spirit, the conversation I had was basically said they would like some of the Boca Hoops, who is very robust and very active, to really, get into their own field house. And I think we need to consider, down the road, that second field house that is really dedicated towards the Boca Hoops group. And that also solves an issue with the schools, so they can use their gyms for their purposes. And Boca Hoops is just, again, it's a very robust, great program that is unique to Boca. And we really want to support it best we can. If that fits at Countess de Hornley or if it's somewhere else, we need to really think about it and fund it and be ready to do that. And as Mr. Garth Gray, who's a friend, pointed out, rugby, look, that's to be open field, and somewhere we need to find a home for the rugby players that can use a multi-purpose open field that's not kind of pushed so tightly on their time frames. They're getting kicked out of non-Esters, let's be clear. And the last thing I like to do is anyone who's got a good volunteer base and is running the program and putting all the sweat and tears in it, we got to support them. So I think we have to find a home for that, but put it in the camp of a multi-purpose field for everyone to use. So maybe that's something that we throw back to Miller Lake to say, where would this fit best? Don't know. Is it best here or another location? That was a good point about over at El Rio too, the soccer fields there. That has to be further developed to give them a proper home, because now they have a robust base, but it's only 125 kids. So it's still not huge, but it could evolve into something. So my thought is, and the reason I mentioned this is conversations was, and I directed everything back towards Brianne. I said, look, you need to talk to Brianne Harm. She's the executive director. There is clearly the Palm Beach School District loves to partner with us to do some things, but they are happy to facilitate, whether it's building of things, with our funding, but we have to collectively decide what we want. My message back to them is put it in writing and give it to Brianne and see what we can, we'll take it up as a discussion item. But I think over the next year, I would really like to see us, put out a temporary, it should be permanent, I don't know, pickleball at Boca Chica, get that cleaned up, get Miller Lake going on what that is, whatever that plan is. As that evolves, it's going to take time. And then let's foster that relationship with the Palm Beach school system to find out what we need as a group, and we have to start funding it. So that's it.
You, Mr. Rollins.
Craig, you're our treasurer, right?
Yeah.
And you know what's in the budget. And the last time we looked at a field house at Sugar Sand, it was north of 10 million, probably 12 million. It's a shame that we're getting $25,000 from the school board for the maintenance of those facilities over there, which are the ball fields and at Estridge. And I had to cry to Tom Lynch, who was the chairman, to get that. And they thought they were doing us a real big favor. It's mutual. It's our kids. And I hear what you're saying. The issue really is, like you're saying, everything is evolving. We're in a transition. We have, as Jack McWalter said, there's more kids coming in here. In the office park that I'm in, they're building apartments and condominiums like there's no tomorrow. And I see these young people walking in the morning, jogging in there, and it's a wonderful office park. But we're having a lot more people who want to be outdoors recreating, and we've got to be responsive to that. I agree that the limitation, of course, is the land and the money. We have the land, and we've got to be very judicial about how we divide that up into recreational needs for our community. And I agree with you about the pickleball. I think that's something over there. We get that going on. It'd be, an unsupervised place to play, just like we'd have over at Hillsborough Rio. But and hopefully we can get it done for 127. I did watch the video, and like Aaron, somebody had to send it to me because it didn't come through official channels, and I was a little surprised. And I was surprised at a number of different things in there. One is that unless I misunderstood, the folks that live in that country club will be considered residents for golf fees. So they're in the county, and they would be using that for resident fees. Our folks who are not in they're in the reserve area, and the folks at the polo ground who are now with the city are using our facilities as with resident rates, and we can't charge them anything for ad valorem revenue. So there's some a conundrum that I see there with how this is being rolled out. But the interesting thing, there was, fee discussion, which Sue mentioned was 75 for a resident, 105 for non-resident. And they did mention they were going to put some more tees there, and all that. I think I'd hope they would rethink that, because, when you start combining duffers like me with folks that are low handicap or junior golfers, unless you set up a specific day for that, it's going to be tough playing a championship course, even with forward tees. But I thought it was very interesting. If you haven't seen it and you need the link, let me know and I'll send it to you, because I think you ought to watch it. I thought it was interesting. They're still looking at some major changes over there. They're talking about maybe the filling in the pool. They're not sure what to do with that. They're looking at changing the entrance to the park, but they have an issue with the traffic control. And they don't know what they're going to do with the tennis courts, whether it's going to all be pickleball, all tennis, or some combination. A lot to be, which surprised me. I thought they would be further along in the idea, since they actually signed this arrangement a year ago. And I know that the place would have been open to them to look at and do their evaluation. But hopefully this will turn out to be a good project for the golfers. I'm not giving up on the idea of some type of golf facility. You mentioned, Craig, over at Boca Chica. I think that they'll complement each other rather than being a draw.
The fees was written into the contract, I guess, when the donation was done. That was set for the residents there. So
that didn't come across, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was wondering, that was a question I had, is how did they come up with that when we were struggling to get $35 for our resident fees at the other facility.
Yeah, that's what I believe. That's what was said, was that it was written into the contract, or the donation contract, or whatever it was, that would be set for them. So
most likely that sounds like a reasonable explanation.
yeah.
But anyway, more to come. I think that hopefully they'll get this ready, opening November 1st, closing October 31st on Boca Muni.
My one concern, though, sorry, is the pickleball. If they do decide to keep pickleball there, we do the pickleball courts at Boca Chica, and we also have 12 pickleball courts planned at Patch Reef. That's a lot of pickleball courts. And when we did our needs assessment, the needs assessment was done, it only called for an additional 12.
And it
So
did
I don't
not,
want to I
it did
want to
not
give,
count. Yeah.
I want to make sure we have pickleball for the community, but I also don't want to have pickleball courts, all over the place and them not being used either. So we have to be really cognizant of what they do there and what we're doing at the same time. So we really need to have good communication with them.
Yeah, I think that discussion will be held in the very near future.
And which ones are lighted and which ones not. Like if we build at Boca Chica, I don't believe we're going to be lighting those, so which ones are going to be more used and which ones should we build and which ones shouldn't we build?
To me, the land at Patch Reef is so valuable. It's wait, if you don't do it there, that's okay, because you're taking down trees, you're doing a lot of work there. The work that it's already kind of pre-existing at Boca Chica.
not necessarily quickly, but what is the right thing to do and what makes more sense for us? You know what I mean? And like if they convert a bunch of tennis courts at Boca Country Club, that might be enough. Who knows? So you know what I mean? Like hopefully we can communicate with them and just try to get some more information on what's being planned over there.
They don't, I don't know, but they will know shortly about the plans at Patch Reef. And I think that still makes good sense. I think that, there was some discussion at one of our joint meetings about a national pickleball complex. Personally, I'm not interested in building something for the outside world. I don't want to be in Naples. We've got one of those. I want to take care of our own community. We're having a tough enough time doing that with our revenue, but hopefully, those are clay courts over there. If the city closes on Boca Muni, gets whatever the number is, I know there's plans that have been floated around on a municipal complex, which would take up Memorial Tennis. And those are clay courts there. And it would seem to me to be the logical extension to put the clay court, keep those clay courts over there at the country club. But anyway, it was good. If you haven't seen that, let Brienne know, because I sent her a copy of that. She could forward that on to you if you want. Steve.
We all got copies.
Oh, did
We all got an
Did you?
email
Okay.
with
All
that
right.
information. And Mr. Rollins, you did say the magic words. Brienne, would you work on a joint meeting for us with the city so that we can talk about things like this and see where each body needs to go, wants to go, and can afford to go? I think it's a really important thing. We were supposed to do it in August, but things happen and we weren't able to do it. But now after budget season, I think we really need to get together with the city council and talk about the needs of the community, where we need pickleball, where we need a short course for golf or a golf park, because we want to focus on the youth in our community and get more kids out on the golf course and grow the game. I saw a man the other day with his little girl at Osprey, and I said, "Oh, is she playing?" And he said that she has no place to play. She has no place to go. I'd like to get her into first tee or junior PGA, but there's nothing around here. So I think the youth deserve our attention as far as any golf and that kind of an activity. Mr. Ernst, I have a question for Mr. Horowitz. You mentioned, because we need a field house because Boca Hoops is robust. And believe me, my kids grew up doing Boca Hoops and I love that organization. But we can't focus on providing a field house for one specific group. So I just want to make that clear to the public that this would be a field house for all, and for basketball, for volleyball, whatever.
Part of that discussion, Madam Chair, is that Sugar Sand, Verde, OC5, 3 new schools, K through 8, no gymnasium. So I don't know if Verde has one now. I don't think so. Just K through 5. So you to me, there is the Palm Beach school system is focused on education and buildings and schools, but not recreation. So
I'm not arguing with you. I want the public to know that we would not be building a gymnasium for Boca Hoops specifically. It would be for the community. So that, and I'm still on record for that. Brienne, where are we with the Miller Leg agreement?
A little busy last week, but he's working on we are working on the scope and the fee proposal right now. We haven't got anything ironed out to take to Jacob yet for an agreement. So we're working on it. Hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have that ready to go. Same with the Grau agreement.
Once we get the information from Ms. Harms, we'll be able to turn it around pretty quickly. So hopefully for your next meeting, assuming the information's ready.
Okay, thank you. Future agenda items, Brienne?
City O&M and CIP again, and we'll also talk about the pickleball at Boca Chica as a separate agenda item to add that to the district CIP list. Come back with some numbers.
Commissioners, do you have anything?
Adjourn.
Would you do a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.